So to be honest with you, I haven't really been driving my car a whole lot. For the last, I don't know, maybe 8 months or so, I've probably put about 3,000 miles on the car in total. So it's kind of a slow drive for me at this point. Due to some personal circumstances and my work situation, I just haven't had to leave the house a whole lot. I do a lot of, local travel, a lot of around town type driving, and I've taken a couple of short road trips here and there. Now, the cool thing is I've discovered that I have no more range anxiety. I've realized that it just doesn't matter anymore. There's plenty of charging places available, so I never really worry about it. Recently, I was out on a trip and I went, took my car out, I drove a little while, I brought the battery down a little bit, drove a little while more, parked the car overnight, took it somewhere else, and took a longer trip, where I was going like 30, 40 miles at a time, and then would turn around and come back and then park the car overnight again and drove it the next day. And I had no real range anxiety. I was like, look, if anything happens, I can always get a charge somewhere. It's not a big deal. So I was totally comfortable with leaving it like that. And I think I wound up coming home at the end of those couple of days with like 10% battery left, which was plenty to get everything done I needed to get done. And I really never felt like I was in any significant risk. It was just fine to drive it like that. And that's the thing about it. I've really come to this point where range anxiety doesn't get to me anymore. I just drive my car and I don't worry about it. I know that I can charge it a lot of different places. There are many more Tesla superchargers than there ever used to be, plus these level 2 chargers that exist around, and of course I can come home at any point. So I've got plenty of battery to be able to get home. Now, the other thing I was thinking about in terms of the battery was this question that I've had a debate about with a few people on a couple of YouTube videos that I created, a couple people on Twitter. I had a conversation on email, and I've had a conversation with a couple of friends of mine about what the best practice is for charging. Do you plug it in all the time? Do you plug it in some of the time? Do you charge to 80%? Do you charge to 100%? Do you use more level 2 charging, level 3, where you're at the supercharger type thing? What's the right way to charge your car? And I don't think there's any one-size-fits-all right way. That's the thing. I think the conclusion we all kind of came to as sort of a consensus is do what works easiest for you. Do the thing that makes you the most comfortable when you're driving your car. If you have access to a level 2 charger and you're going to be home for a period of time, sure, plug it in just to give the battery the most health that you can give it. But the computer system really controls the battery very, very efficiently. And in some cases, like in my car, I have a 2019 standard range, not a standard range plus. What they did is they put the same battery pack in it between the standard range and the plus, but they software limit how much of the battery you can use. Now, I understand that in some of the other models, there are some number of batteries that are in there that are not used, and the computer controls managing them. And the reason for that is if one battery, one cell goes bad, they can opt to use a different cell so that you don't lose much in the power degradation. You don't lose much battery life. It's kind of a clever thing, and I believe in my case that's always true because I'm about 10% below what the battery capacity would be anyway. So it actually works out fairly well. Now, I haven't noticed any drop in my ability to drive. And they're always updating the software anyway. Tesla constantly pushes new software updates, so it's really impossible to tell if I'm losing any battery life, really, because the software is always adjusting for things. So it's kind of hard to know whether I'm actually losing things. Now, what I'd like to see is a large-scale study that actually looks at battery health, where they look at a number of different factors and actually do a little experiment around it to determine what contributes to battery health. Is charging all the time better, charging to 80%, 90%, 100%, taking it down to 20 or 10, always going to level 2, primarily using level 3. What kinds of things would impact battery health? That's the kind of thing that I'd really like to see a study done on. I haven't seen anything like that. If anyone knows anything about that or has seen anything like that, please just post below or send me an email or whatever. Let me know, because I'm kind of curious what kinds of things you might learn from this. How does battery health react? These batteries, while they're similar to the batteries in a phone, are different. So the way we think about them and the way we use them should also be different because they're different. They're slightly different in the way that they're managed. And the software that goes in this car, the way it manages it and the way it does things is much more effective than the software you have in your phone for managing the battery and the battery health. And you think about your phone, you use it under a lot of different conditions in a lot of different times. You take the battery all the way up, you take the battery all the way down. That's just the way we use our phones. The car is different, and the way it manages the battery and the battery health is completely different too. But it would be interesting to see a study and see what comes up and what kinds of things do impact battery health. Tesla does a really good job of managing the battery, and I believe other car companies do as well. But it's really not understanding the batteries at this point. Now, I understand from the newer cars, the ones with the newer battery packs, they encourage you to charge to 100% as often as you want. It's for my car, the suggestion was charge to 80 or 90%, don't go to 100 unless you're taking a trip. But on the new cars, that doesn't seem to matter. And that's true of any car company at this point with the newer batteries they're coming out with. And so battery health is changing and the way they think about batteries is changing. So I find that kind of interesting, and I would like to see a lot more research done on this topic. And I'm going to continue to look for research on the topic. I collect my own data. If anyone has any data from their own car they'd like to share, just how your battery health is going, send it over to me. Let me know. I'd be happy to see what you have and kind of try to interpret it in some way. And even if it's a minor experiment, a mild experiment that I'm doing, I'd like to know a little bit more about battery life. So let me know, and I'd be curious. Now, as far as charging goes, one of the interesting things I noticed was I have a 2019 car, and I got the wall adapter that goes with that car. It came standard with the car when I bought it. So it's an older generation of that. And I've noticed that over the summer, a couple of times, it stopped charging all by itself. Nothing happened in the car. Just all of a sudden, I'd get a message from the app saying charging stopped. And I'd go out and look at the charge adapter, and it would be red. Like, wow, that's really strange. And that the plug-in, the display on the car itself would also be red, and on the display inside, it would show charging stopped. And I was like, that's really weird. So I did a little research, and I found out there are some reasons for it. It's often the charge adapter itself that's the problem, but not always. So it does flash up a sequence of codes. It tells you it flashes red so many times, and it means this. It's telling you what it means. But unfortunately, the first few times it did it, I came out and looked to see what was happening, and I saw it flashing, but I didn't know what it meant. I hadn't looked at the manual yet. And more recently than that, I've been doing other things, and by the time I got out to look at it, it had actually gone back and started charging all on its own again. So it's really strange that it's doing that. Now, one factor I've noticed, it started when the weather started to get really hot and really humid. So it's entirely possible this has something to do with something that's beyond the control of me. It's possible it's something to do with the electrical current that's coming in. They could be working on the electrical grid for all I know. Could be something like that. So it could be a problem with the energy service in some way rather than necessarily that device. But I'll keep an eye on it just to see what it is, because I don't know. It could very well be that there's something wrong with the device. And maybe at some point I'll actually get to see it flashing its color and showing me what it's doing, so I have an understanding of what it is. One thing I did to compensate was I reduced the amperage, the amount of amps that it's taking into the car, down to 16 amps, and it seemed to solve the problem. I raised it back up to 20, and I see it periodically. So again, I think it may have something to do with the heat. The garage gets very hot during the day, and when I go to plug the car in at night, it's still very hot in here. It's very humid. So it could be a problem with that. Could be a problem with the electrical service. I don't know. I haven't seen any other problems anywhere else in the house, so I'm not really sure what the issue is there. And it could, of course, be the device. That's entirely possible. That's the problem. So I'll keep an eye on it. It's under warranty. I'll take it in if I need to, and we'll go from there. Now, one other thing that I got was a notification that there's a recall on my car. And the recall has to do with the cable that goes out to the camera on the rear. And somehow by opening and closing the trunk, it damages the cable, and they'll replace it at some point. I got the notification that they'll call me for a recall at some point, and I'll get it replaced. And that's fine. That's terrific. The thing is that I realized that my car, like I said, I'm not driving a whole lot. I've had it for over 3 years now, and I've only put 22,000 miles on it. So I have never rotated the tires. So I was going to do that, and then when I got the recall notice, I'm like, well, why don't I wait until I have to go and actually have it serviced for the recall, because then I can actually just stop once and go in and have it serviced and be done with it, rather than having to go in twice. Now, I know they come in and they do mobile service sometimes, so it would be easy potentially, but I'm like, you know what, I'll just wait and I'll do it at that point. If I had more miles on it, or I was putting more miles on it, I might feel differently, but I'm not at a point where I feel like I'm putting a lot of miles on it anyway. Another thing that I noticed recently, my son was actually driving my car to go different places. He's got, different things around town he goes to. So I have him drive the Tesla. No problem. It's an easy thing to drive. He loves driving it. So I'm like, why not? Go ahead, enjoy it. And something I noticed, because I was the one who always drove it, is that when you actually open up the Tesla app while the car is driving, you can see where it is and see it's moving in real time. And it was kind of cool to look at it and just go, wait, that's kind of cool, because I had never noticed or experienced this before, because I'm the one always driving the car, so I never really looked at it. So I just thought that was kind of neat when I was looking at it and saw the car in motion, saw where it was, and could see all this real-time information about it. It's like, that's actually pretty cool. It's sending real-time data back. And you got to figure that's also going to Tesla as a part of their amalgamation of information about the car and how people drive. It's just the way that works. And I think that's okay. As an aside, I had a conversation with my wife the other day. We were talking about the car insurance company that we currently have was suggesting that we could get a discount if we were willing to plug in one of those devices that sends back data about how we drive. And she's like, I don't know if I want to do that. I go, I do that all the time. That's what the Tesla does. I've given up my right to privacy in a sense in exchange for this cool car that I can drive that's fully electric. So in a way, I'm already doing that. So I don't really care. You can plug that in my car. It doesn't really matter. Now, this car doesn't have the same port, so I'm not sure how it would work, but whatever. There's probably a way to connect it, I'm assuming. But I just thought that was kind of interesting that, you know, she had a reaction that was like, wait, this isn't the way I'd want to use my car. And I'm like, I'm already doing that. Who cares?